Well, hello everybody. Isn't this a delight? Yes, it is a delight. My name's Lee Lewis. I'm the artistic director here at Queensland Theatre, and on stage with me are the slightly excited, very disorganised, huge team that are bringing you Boy Swallows Universe. Woohoo! Of course, we're doing all of this on the lands of the Yagara and the Turrbal people. Stories have been told for tens of thousands of years on this land. And as we start to bring a brand new story onto this land, we'd like to pay our respects to elders past and present and acknowledge the huge load they carry in ensuring that the world's longest continuous culture not only survives us, but thrives. This is a day which I didn't think was going to happen, even up to 2 weeks ago. I have 21 people sitting on stage with me at the moment, but there should be a lot more. We just can't fit them. A lot of people have worked to bring this huge production together over the last 2.5, 3 years. And it's a partnership. It's not just Queensland Theatre. We have partnered with the wonderful, wonderful people of Brisbane Festival and with the amazing team here at QPAC. 3 of Queensland's huge institutions coming together for the hugest, most ambitious production that the company has ever done. And sitting underneath those 3 organisations are a team of the people I like to think of as the stewards, both the corporate sponsors and the partners who have helped us make it. So I'm gonna list them because they deserve enormous thanks for sticking with us through the last 2 years, through the chaos of COVID. And they include our Queensland Theatre's principal partner, RACQ, our production partner, Ergon Network and Energex, part of Energy Queensland, the Landmark Productions Fund. For Brisbane Festival, they are their foundation partners, Queensland Government and Brisbane City Council, Tourism and Events Queensland and Brisbane Festival donors, and of course for QPAC, their principal partners are Minter Ellison and Hyundai. Then there are a huge raft of individual people across all 3 organisations who've supported this work across the years. They're going to get a lot of thanks in the next little while, but I wanted on this particular night with this subscriber briefing to reach out to all of you, our subscribers, who have been with this play since the very beginning. We're doing it all for you, and we're so happy to be able to do it all for you. Now, I'm not going to try and introduce everybody. We've got a number of different microphones, and so starting with you, Tom, at the end, everybody's going to introduce themselves. Ready, set, go.
Hi, I'm Tom Yaxley and I play August Bell.
Hi, I'm Tim McGarry and I'm the writer of Boy Swallows University Adapter.
Yes. Hello, I'm Michaela Bannis and I play Frankie Bell.
I'm Andrew Buchanan. I play Teddy Callis and a TV reporter who sounds like Wally Lewis.
I'm Matthew Erskine. I'm the Associate Sound Designer and Head of Sound for the season.
Hello, my name is Ngop Van. I play Bik Dang and Poppy Birkbeck and the receptionist who we've named Sharon.
Hi there, my name is Anthony Gooley. I'm playing Lyle and Brian Robertson and a few others. Oh, you got one.
Hi, I'm Charles Ball and I'm part of the ensemble.
Hi, I'm Hua Shonday and I'm playing Darren Dang and a few of the other ensemble members.
Hi, I'm Ashley Lolback. I play Shelley, Dr. Brennan and Caitlin Spies.
Hello. I'm Jos Bakulium. I play Ivan Kroll and Alex Bermudez.
I'm Joe Klotzik and I play Eli Bell.
I've got some people in absentia who I should mention. One of whom is Steve Francis, who's our composer and sound designer, who is working remotely from Sydney. And another person who's working remotely from Sydney is Nigel Poulton, our intimacy and fight director. And I'm Sam Strong, director and dramaturg. It's lovely to see everyone again.
My name's Renee Mulder. I am the set and costume designer.
Hi, I'm Ben Hughes. I'm the lighting designer.
Hello, Craig Wilkinson, video designer.
Hi, Nerida Matei, movement director.
Anthony Phelan, I play Slim Halliday, and Titus Bros. Look out.
Hi, my name is Matt Cooper. I play Robert Bell and some of the other ensemble.
Hi, my name is Xingru Eli, and I'm part of ensemble.
Hello, I'm John Reed, senior stage manager.
I'm realizing this is your introduction to some characters that you've loved for a long time. I've fallen in love with this cast, and I can't think of the characters without these faces and beautiful acting spirits attached to them. But before we get into some of the questions that you've sent in, I want to thank this team, this glorious team of performers and creatives. It's been a really tricky rehearsal period. We got locked down. There was a week of rehearsal on Zoom. There have been all of the ways of working with COVID that we have now. If someone feels a little bit sick, they don't come into rehearsal, they go get a test. So I want to thank them, but most of all, I want to thank director Sam Strong, former artistic director. I mean, he did bring this all on himself, the scale of the play, but not the COVID enterprise that it has become. And I want to personally, but also as on behalf of the whole company, thank him for steering this ship through the most troubled of times. This gratitude comes from reading one of the first questions that came in tonight from Richard Yaxley, who said, "What has been the biggest creative challenge in terms of getting the play ready for the stage?" So, having said you can't claim
Apart
COVID,
from working with Tom, I think is the other half of that question.
Sam Strong, take it away. This enterprise, what has been the biggest creative challenge apart from COVID, which no one wants to talk about at all?
Oh, well, I think in some ways, and thank you for your very, very kind words too. I think even though we don't want to talk about COVID, I think it is inevitable that in some ways we have to start. We have to start with that. And obviously we have had a somewhat disrupted process, but I think as Lee was alluding to, our approach to that disruption has been to kind of, as is our approach to most things with this production, which is to channel the spirit of the novel and its creator, and to say, you know, kind of what would Trent do, if you like. And the answer to that, and the answer that the novel and the story gives us, is to confront adversity, to confront difficult circumstances with hope and optimism and love and tenacity. So that's been our approach to this kind of COVID stuff, which we can then kind of chuck aside. I think to then talk about the substance of it. I think this is as much a gift as a challenge, but it's the scale of the work or the scale of the story, I think, that we're telling, because you could always have a production that didn't necessarily match the scale of the original story. But what that kind of incredibly sort of powerful triumvirate of Queensland Theatre and Brisbane Festival, and thank you, Louise, and QPAC have enabled is all of these amazing creative artists, including the cast and all of the design team and all of the different forms of directors on the show, is to really kind of dream at scale and embrace, in a sentence, to embrace the kind of confidence and audacity of the novel. I think one of the reasons why I fell in love with Trent's book, and so many people have fallen in love with Trent's book, is that it just does things that are sort of you shouldn't be able to do. You know, switch from gritty social realism to something that's a bit absurd, from kind of cinematic thriller to something that's kind of magic realist. And I think it does that with such confidence and panache that we want to match that in the way that we tell the story. Obviously, I'll try because there's a lot of people to talk tonight, so I'll give you a quick answer. And thank you to John Kotsis as well, with your QPAC on as well. Hat on, thank you.
Now, I had a sneak peek. I got to see her run in the rehearsal room on Saturday, and I have to tell you that under fluorescent lights, with no costumes, I cried, I laughed, both inappropriately and both joyfully. And I saw a magic thing that an adapter had done with a great book that we all cherish. Tim McGarry, this is a question for you.
For me?
Was it helpful? This is a question from Maxine Chandler. Was it helpful or difficult having Trent Dalton sitting in on rehearsals?
Well, absolutely always helpful. Trent actually didn't come to the rehearsals. He came to the first read, and he too, as Lee was moved, was completely moved by the reading and how the characters came alive. But Trent has been working with Sam and I for the last 3 years on helping us adapt the work, and I can't remember the expression he uses. He's the keeper of. Do you remember that, Sam? He called it the keeper of
story. I think
the keeper of the story. So as we were working through the adaptation, as I was kind of working out what parts we would bring to the stage and which parts we might leave behind, he was always extremely generous. But I remember one day in Sam's office, he came in and he was like, oh, I just want to apologise, I just don't know how to say this. But I went, no, say it, please, it's your story. And he went, I think you need that sentence there because that is the crux of the whole story. And I was like, oh my God, of course. So having Trent in the room always is a joy. Having his energy in the production has been an absolute joy, and I just can't wait for him to see his story live. Great question, Maxine. Thank you.
Now, this is, of course, your story. It's Brisbane's story. And, of course, it's amazing getting to make the first production of this play on the lands it was written on. And who knows where the story will go and where around the world it will go. But one question that's come from Peter Pollard, very practically, and the thing that can only be done in the city, and I'm going to open this up to anyone to answer, who has been to Boggo Road Jail and what did you take away from the experience?
I've been to Boggo Road, but I've talked enough, so someone else must have been to Boggo Road.
Any cast who've been recently, maybe, or historically?
I did 15 years dumb robbery, and no, a mate of mine called me one night. He said, "I've got the keys to Boggo Road. I've got to get something out for some conference or something." And we went there, and there was no one there. It was dark, and we had to go into it. It was terrifying, and we got out alive.
Excellent. Now, we've got a question from Josie Savas. She says, I struggled to imagine this amazing story as a play. What was the most difficult part of bringing the story from the book to the stage? Now, as we sit on this stage, which at the moment looks most unimpressive, I have to say, because only the floor's in, I'm going to look to Renee Mulder, who is our set and costume designer, and having been privy to your designs and seeing them on paper, what has been how the most difficult part, and how have you managed it? Obviously, in the team.
I mean, it sort of starts with the words, doesn't it? And it's a slight editing process, but it's also figuring out how you can mix a few of the ideas together in the world that gives us an essence of what we've read and remembered, without it necessarily being carbon copy of what's in the book. It's kind of a combination of both.
Now, but there are hundreds of characters in the play.
Hundreds of characters.
And you are the costume designer for that.
Yes.
How have you solved that?
Well, as you can see, with all these beautiful people on stage, many of the cast are double up, triple up. I think Charlie has possibly the most changes. I think you're like 13 characters.
Yeah, so it was fun. We went in for the costume fitting and we were in there for an hour and a half, and that was just to get through Act 1. So, I think I'll be busier backstage with all the quick changes than actually on, but, I hope you all enjoy Prison Guard number 4.
So there are the people who are doing multiple roles like that, but then there's quite a complex idea behind the idea of some of the major doubling, and I want to go back to Sam with that and where those ideas started as you looked at this huge world.
Yeah, well, I can throw to some of the cast who are executing that doubling as well, because they'll no doubt have great things to say, but I think we were talking before about the challenges. One of the challenges, of course, is to find ways to not just do justice to this work in the theatre, but almost to kind of try and do it better in the theatre. And by that I mean do it in a way that only the theatre can do. And one way of doing that is the way that we're doubling particular characters. And specifically, there is those of you who have read the novel, which I assume is most of you, though it's okay if you haven't, it's still great if you haven't. One of the ways in which we're doing that is that the novel has this sort of thematic preoccupation with being a good or a bad person. One of the things that Eli is constantly asking people is, are you a good man, or are you a good person? And so we wanted to kind of find a way to cast the work in a way that sort of sharpened the focus on that thematic. So there are a series of doublings across the work where people play kind of good and bad people effectively. So Tony's is a kind of case in point of Slim Halliday and Titus Bros. Joss has got another one of kind of Alex Bermudez and Yvonne Kroll, and there are a series of those as well. I don't know if anyone who's doing some of those doubling want to speak to that particular challenge of playing kind of multiple roles.
Following the metaphor of the book had always been a guide for me, that Trent had this inner heart, this light about good and bad, the good and the bad, and Eli and Slim Halliday talk about it a lot. All men are sometimes bad, and all men are sometimes good, Eli. And it's true, that's humanity, that's what we are. But he also says the trick is to do something good every single day. And it kind of works, really, because that's where love comes from, and that's what heals, and that's what forgives. And I think we find that as humans, the hardest thing to do is to love and forgive. They're the two hardest things. So this juxtaposition, this metaphor of good and bad, I get to play, which is a great gift for me, to play this very wholesome, true man who's struggled to be good, and a man who's struggling to be more evil than he could possibly be, but he doesn't know it. I think he's just too stupid to realise. He just wants to, but he gets his in the end, and without giving too much away, I can say that. But we need that balance. We need that in our lives. To be good, we can understand what's bad. To be bad, we can understand what's good. And I think maybe Trent is trying to help us find that too, through Eli.
Now, with all of this doubling going on, it will look seamless on stage, but backstage is a little bit more frantic. In one of those strange COVID blessings, one of the great stage managers of Australia who we lost to Cirque and a life in Canada came back home for this time. And fortunately, we've had his great organisational brain pulling this work together. Now, John, I understand there's a whole plot backstage that facilitates that. How big is this backstage team, and what are some of the ways that you've tackled bringing this world together?
Well, we've got a backstage team of two mechanists, one who's doing flies, one who's doing revolve, two costume dressers, wiggers, myself, an ASM, a deputy stage manager who's calling the show, audio-visual operator, and radio mic technician. That is the on-the-floor back here crew. And we've been fortunate enough to be able to rehearse on the set in the workshop over at QT for the last 5 weeks. Through that process, Sam and the team have been able to work out the physical manipulation of all of the stuff that we need to get on and off the stage in order to pull the show together. What we haven't done, we've done theoretically through fittings, is costumes. And so in this kind of magic way in which two brains came together, in pre-production I was working on a document about how to track this, and Renee had worked on one. she sent me hers, and I'm thinking, this is exactly the same as what I've just done myself, you know. And so we were on the same page from day one, and so we worked on how do we track who's doing what when. And so it's an Excel spreadsheet which became our Bible over the last 5 weeks as things change and we do the scene a different way. All of a sudden, okay, so that now means that person's got 30 seconds to change a costume. And we're like, maybe we can't do that, so we'll come up with a different idea. And so we had these a creative team meeting every single night after rehearsal, so for half an hour. There would be us who were on site as well as creatives who were on Zoom. And we'd talk about the day, look ahead for the next week and any other issues that had came up. And so that also was a really important technique for us as well, is to stay on top of what's being developed each day and just having that half an hour just to talk about it and regroup before we go into the next day. And so it was a combination of those things that sort of ultimately it allowed everything to kind of fall into place to get us into the best position you could possibly be in by the time we get here to start taking the show this week.
Now, you mentioned rehearsing in the workshop. Another COVID silver lining is normally with a work of this size, you wouldn't get onto the Revolve until maybe the week before, because the set would be being built. But the fabulous production team at Queensland Theatre finished this set last year. And it's because it's so big and we didn't have anywhere to store it, we kept it up in the workshop, which may have explained why these sets at Queensland Theatre have been smaller this year, because we haven't necessarily had as much space as we would normally have to build. So a big shout out to that team for the work that they've done and for giving over the workshop for the last 5 weeks to rehearsals. And having been quite disparaging about the floor, when the walls go up and the world happens, just you wait. And the bit I haven't seen, that I can't wait to see, connects with this next question about the number of scenes and where we are. And I'd like to throw to you, Craig, to talk about your process in the imagining of where we're at. Because I believe the fabulous set and costume designer, Renee Mulder, has provided you with a backdrop that allows you to project worlds onto it. Is that right?
Absolutely. Quite a large canvas for us to play with. There is over 40 scenes within the work, so there's a lot of locations. It's really kind of quick fire with Tim's brilliant adaptation on how we kind of jump from one scene to the next. And kind of on paper, it can be pretty daunting. In the same way when you read the book, it kind of reads like a film in the way that we kind of jump from place to place. We have an incredible kind of canvas to play with, and the entire creative team have kind of worked through how much we realise each particular place, location. But the brilliance of, as anyone who has read the book, the brilliance of the book is it isn't necessarily just about Brisbane, it's actually about a much deeper kind of family, love, about coming of age, all of those kind of things. So being to be able to realise that visual world that a lot of us will know is really exciting.
Now, that's the part of the play that I haven't seen, that and the lighting. So this is crunch time for you. Tech time is really where your two worlds come in and wrap around this extraordinary place. What is that feeling like? Because we've seen, I always say if the story works under fluoros, then the play is going to be amazing, because the light world really sculpts around that. But what's this night like for you? Because you're about to start, aren't you?
Kind of waiting. Hurry up and wait is what we like to say. The sooner that everything gets in, the sooner is we can start to build that part of the show. And it's sort of that thing where you hope that everything you've planned and everything that you've dreamt of and everything you've talked about with everybody else on stage actually is going to work. So it's kind of a terrifying period just before it happens, but it is the best time. It's the time where you actually get to do your bit of the production. So I'm really looking forward to the next week.
And I'm looking forward to seeing what you sculpt out of this world. What I did get to see was some, you talked about the 40 scenes, but there are also, in between the scenes, some extraordinary movement, shaping and sculpting from Nerida. I'm interested, Nerida, in the relationship between you and Sam in imagining this world, because as a director working with a movement director, your brains have to be pretty intertwined in the telling of the story. how did that start for you?
Well, I guess Sam and I have been working together for a few years now across a few different projects. And each time, increasingly, I kind of slip a bit more choreography into the mix. So it's been a bit of a building relationship. And so this particular project, we've worked closer than we probably have before. So the movement language really embeds the entire work, which is very exciting for me because I get to be there kind of in the mix the whole time. But in terms of kind of like figuring out the ideas and the conceptual language that informs what kind of movement we'll be doing, we've been kind of bouncing ideas back and forth for quite some time now. And also, you know, when we're on the floor together, I guess there's just those moments where we have our little kind of brainstorm moments in the corner, and then we come in and, you know, do it together. So really it's just about experimentation and finding what we're aiming for beforehand. And something that's been really beautiful in this process is that the cast, we've been able to develop this really genuine collective ensemble language together, which means that everyone's kind of trusting each other, taking risks together, and, you know, there's kind of no wrong answers. So everybody's just willing to put things out on the floor, and then we find the nuance and the detail and kind of sculpt it together.
I'm seeing this huge world with an enormous amount of movement, with all of these different costume changes, with everybody running around. And at the centre of it is Eli, who doesn't double with any other character. I think barely leaves the stage. There is an interval, thank heavens. But I have a question for you, Joe. How do you keep your energy up, and how are you anticipating keeping your energy up? And this question comes from Maria Bolton.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Lots of coffee. Actually, I think, to be honest, it's probably even more hectic backstage than it is to be on stage the whole time. If you look at the wings here, there's limited room, and we've got quite a big cast, and there's a lot of set pieces moving. I think Trent's story and Tim's adaptation of the story is fantastic in the way it propels the narrative forward, and in a way I gain my energy through that, because sort of you don't really have an opportunity to lapse in energy. One scene just propels you into the next and into the next and into the next. And I think I'll be getting a lot of sleep when I'm not on stage. So yeah, I guess that's how I'm going to keep my energy up.
And another question for you, and opening up to the rest of the cast as well. What was it like to actually have this story approaching and then to have to put it away for a year and come back to it? Has there been some good in that terrible bad?
That's a really difficult question, Lee. I mean, I think from the first moment I read the story, it's kind of always been on my mind. I remember coming and meeting Sam and doing my initial audition, and I think sort of time passed quite quickly in my mind because it sort of never left my head. So it's not really something I've considered. The positive being that we've had this wonderful set to work on. So because of COVID, we've had the opportunity to work with things we wouldn't have otherwise been able to. And to be honest, with a show of this scale, I don't know how I would cope not having had the opportunity to rehearse on a set. And, you know, we got an A-team here. Everyone is so brilliant at what they do. And so, yeah, it's been quite the journey, I know, for a lot of people for a lot longer than me. Sam and Tim, how long have you guys been on it for?
We're up to about 3 years.
Yeah, so it's been easy for me that just to have a year in between it. Yeah.
I'm going to ask each of you late in this exercise what your favourite line is. So I'm telling you now so that you can actually plan for that answer. But in the meantime, in the meantime, I wanted to ask you a question, Andrew Buchanan, because in that question of the light and dark in the play, you know, for those of you who read this story, it's no surprise, but in playing Teddy, you're in one of the more violent scenes of the play. How have you gone about building that sequence? And I suppose it's a question with you, Michaela, as well, conveniently sitting right next to him.
I was very daunted. There's a terrible domestic violence scene, and I was feeling very anxious about building trust with, because I hadn't worked with Michaela previously, and I was nervous that she might be nervous, that she's got to be literally in my hands at times, and I did feel an apprehension. And what was amazing was we did a fantastic workshop where we had to look at intimacy issues, and I got to do some workshop-y things with Michaela and gain her trust, and I've been trying to gain her trust for the last number of weeks, because as you'll see, it's quite violent, and so we've been developing the dance of it in a way that is, I've been trying to be safe and yet get ready to let rip with great fury. So it's a strange mindset to be in, where you're just channeling this water white heat and yet being careful not to kill her. So how's it been for you?
It's been really interesting, actually. I find the physical side of it, Andrew and I think we just quite quickly found safety and security physically with one another. I made some choices about Frankie, given the context of what's in the book and the script about her not being a victim, about her being a warrior. So I made choices about her being quite strong and not just being a beaten woman and trying to sort of fight back a little bit. But for me, the language is far worse than the physical side of it. And I strangely feel actually very strong when we do this terrible, terrible scene. And I don't know why I do, but I think it's because I feel really safe with Andrew and because it's choreographed and I trust him and he trusts me, and it's a complete dance that we're doing in some ways. But it's a very... I actually worry more about those observing it, to be honest with you, including the audience. Some might find it quite confronting, and it is confronting stuff. But it's unfortunately very commonplace for a lot of women and some men in this country, and it's a part of the story that has to be told. And I feel really strongly about that, and I think it's a really important part of Eli's experience and this storytelling.
And Sam, it's been really interesting how insistent Trent has been that the play go into the dark of the book. And when we remember the book, we remember all the joy inside it and all of the up things and the things that make us laugh. But I don't know if you've gone back and read it recently, but there's a lot of dark in this play. And I suppose back to you and Tim and that conversation about what that balance is and how you found that in building of the script, but then also in putting it on stage. What have the surprises been for you in that process?
I've always found the scene that Andrew and Michaela were just talking about as the most challenging scene, certainly to write, and for many, many reasons, but I find it's incredibly confronting, and it is confronting to watch, and it is confronting to see. But Trent was very clear. He said, please don't make this like Underbelly. Please. Make it real, because this happened, and it happens, and my family and I are very clear that we want the story to be told in all its truth. And I think we have done that. And Sam and I really listened to that hard, and we said, okay, then we will. We won't sugarcoat it. We will put it exactly as it is, and we have. And I'm really pleased we have, because I think it does tell it does tell a story of a part of the social fabric of our country that we're grappling with, and many countries grapple with it. And I think theatre is a great medium for holding up the mirror to ourselves and going, this is life, and we need to kind of face it. So that's kind of how I've been feeling about it, but it has been tough.
And I have just a small gloss on that, which would be our approach has essentially been to embrace or lean into the extremities of the novel. And as Michaela and Andrew and Tim have suggested, that involves being unflinching in our treatment of its kind of darker parts, but it also involves, on the sort of happier end of the spectrum, it involves kind of embracing with kind of equal relish the other parts of the story. So when the story goes, into places that are a little bit ridiculous, we really go into them, particularly through the vocabulary that narrators created and through what Craig and Ben and the whole design team will be doing. And equally, the parts of the story that are about trauma specifically, I think we've been very keen to find a visual, a physical, a musical, and a kind of audio-visual language for the experiencing and overcoming of trauma, that being the kind of core story of love's kind of capacity to transcend trauma, that we've really embraced that and the kind of theatrical possibility of that. So yeah, it is very challenging, particularly to flip between those different tones, but we take our cue from Trent and the novel in that of kind of actually going, not being afraid to embrace the extremes and flip very quickly from one thing to another.
All that being said, the festival, QPAC and Queensland Theatre are all getting a lot of questions from audience. My kids have seen the poster, can they come to the show? How young is too young? And it's a difficult question to answer. I think it depends on your family and the conversations that you have and how much your kids come to theatre. But having seen it, I go, if you've got a smart young person in your house, this is a good story, and theatre is a safe place to look at dark things. It's a place that allows a conversation rather than shuts it down. So for all of some of the surprising language in it, which is in the book, for some of the darkness in the play, I would say that by all means talk to the different teams of people about what they think. But I would say take a chance on your young people, because I think there's a beautiful brother relationship in the middle of this play, and we watch them get older together through the course of the telling. I've got a question for the two of you about how you've got 5 weeks. How do you build brotherness? Because what I saw in the rehearsal room was so beautiful. How?
You want to go first, Tom? Okay, thanks, man. That's the play.
Brothers.
That's the play right there. I can't speak for Joe, but I'd imagine you'd be on the same page. It was such a blessing when we started to work on this before COVID last year. We were doing a creative development, and I hadn't actually met Joe until that day, but I'd known who he was through mutual contacts and things. And there's this wonderful thing that can happen in a room with actors where you just gel with someone straight away. And I'm about to get very emotional. We both found that very quickly with each other. And so to build that over the last, year or so has been a real gift for my life. And to do it with this story and with everything that Trent's given us and that this hugely generous ensemble give us as well. It's almost a transcendence in a way. I don't want to get too airy-fairy about it, but you do have this connection with people, and it's something that you can't even put into words. It's almost like a chemical thing that happens, and it's a trust that happens. And I have to spend a lot of this play listening to what he says and what other people say. And I've found that that's something that's actually really helped in building that, I think. I'd be interested to know what you think, being the talker of the family.
I got nothing. No, I think you said it perfectly. We just gelled from day one. We rip into each other like brothers off stage, so yeah. No, we get on really well, and I honestly don't really have anything to add to that other than thank you, Tom, for your kind words. My real brother probably wouldn't say that things as nice as that. No, I'm sure he would.
Now, add to the young man mix look, everyone's got their favourite characters. I'm just going to go out there and say my favourite character is Darren Dang. And when you arrived on stage the other day, I just went, oh, there was a little bit of wish fulfillment. I went, yeah, perfect. What was it like? Well, what was it like to actually read the script the first time?
Have you read the script? There's a book? Who are you guys? No.
Always calling for lines.
Yeah. What was the question? Sorry.
What was it like to read the script the first time?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there's so much in the book that has had to, but like it's all there, but it's sort of compacted into this like script. So, you know, as actors do, we look through the script and we're like, where's my bits? Oh, there it is. And then and I'll probably answer this question now in terms of like, what's my favorite line? I'm not going to say, I swear so much in this show. It's ridiculous, but it's fun as well.
But it's virtuosic swearing.
Yeah, but it's great. I love it. Give me more. But yeah, so like I'm having to plot what Darren does in the book in all of these scenes, in all of these lines, in a sort of and everybody does, by the way, in sort of like a truncated way. But in a way, it really lets me play Darren in between the lines. That do you know what I mean? Yeah. So when I first read the script and I saw all the bits that were included, I was like, you know, F yes. I get to really shine. But yeah, Darren's great. He's just got such a like, almost like an oblivious bravado about him, and he walks and struts across the stage and does not care. And it's been really good to sort of embody that.
Yeah. Sitting next to you is another fan favourite, Caitlin Spies. So for you, Ashley, what was your, I suppose, you first read the script, you thought it would be one thing. What has been something that's surprised you in putting it up on the floor?
I think how easy it's been to work together and to create relationships and be able to tell these stories. It's so easy for this love story to develop. And, you know, Joe and I did a development last year for Boy Swallows, and I think that was the first time we really met, and immediately we both had the same passion and we had this heartbeat for this love story. And I think that's really there with Caitlin and Eli from the first time you see them together on stage. Yeah, Caitlin is a beautiful role, and I feel so blessed and lucky to be able to play this role, and I'm getting a bit emotional as well. And then having, you know, the role of Shelley and Dr. Brennan as well, it's just this fun, incredible whirlwind, and then being able to settle into Caitlin, this rock and this really grounded woman who gets to show Eli a different way to live and open his future up to something secure and hopeful and beautiful. And yeah, it's so special, and I feel so lucky. Thank you.
Look, we do feel lucky knowing our friends down in Melbourne and Sydney are locked down, and that we're making some of the only new Australian work that's going on in the country at the moment. There's a little bit of wish fulfillment, but there's a lot of knocking on wood going on, because every show that we get is going to be a win. And we're like, I wake up every morning and check my phone to make sure that we're still on. And one of the reasons we want this to happen so much is because, not only because we've been waiting for the story for such a long time, but because the nature of this story, and it's not about the scale, it's about the complexity of human relationship, is something that we're all craving in a time when we're quite separated from family. I mean, you haven't seen your family in quite a while now, Sam.
No, 5 weeks and counting.
Yeah. And people have given up a lot to do this, but there are things in the book that we love, that we want to see come to life, but we also want to see magic actors bringing them to life. And there was this moment, I have to say, Nog, I was sitting in the workshop, cramped in, watching this thing, and you walked on stage and started singing and not talking about what you're singing at all, and it was totally funny, and I burst into tears because it was that feeling of finally getting to see life coming into something. And I want to ask you about what it's been to pour life into one of Australia's now great villains, Bic.
Terrifying and joyous. It's lovely to be able to play a role that is equally fierce and has glamour to it. So the fact that she has to sing karaoke, this is the first time I'm singing in a show, so forgive me if I sing a bum note, but it's nice to bring that vitality and life to an audience and to let an audience have that joy and laughter in the show. Bringing Bic to life has been an absolute... She's big shoes to fill, and she's a powerhouse of a character, a woman, but as everyone has said about their characters, it's about the good and the bad and what people are willing to do to survive and how people show love. And so, yeah, I find that... I don't even know if I'm making sense right now, Lee. What was the question?
Oh, look, I don't know. I think you're in the ballpark of it. Right. No, I was struck with how much Trent loved your vision for Bic as being a strong and great mum doing what she had to do to survive. As soon as I said the word villain, I was like, no, that's absolutely wrong, because that's not what Trent wrote and that's not what you're playing.
Yeah.
And I think the magic of what Tim has done is give enough space for the love that's in every character. Maybe not Titus.
Or Teddy.
But in that conversation, Tim, what has that been bringing you back into the room? Because, of course, COVID silver lining, you've been trapped up here in Queensland.
Happily.
Tim arrived early before rehearsal and said, look, I was on holiday. Well, you tell the story.
Yeah, I was on holidays in the Northern Territory, and my agent called and said, where are you? I said, I'm in Alice Springs. And she said, don't go back to Sydney. And then Queensland Theatre rang and said, where are you? And I said, oh, I'm in Alice Springs, don't go back to Sydney. So I was 3 weeks early for rehearsals. So I had a lovely time in what Brisbane calls winter.
But it's meant you've been here for a whole rehearsal period, where as a playwright you wouldn't necessarily be here.
No, not at all. Normally the playwright would be kicked out after a week. So it's been an absolute privilege to be here, and I'm thankful to Sam and the team for allowing me to stay, because sometimes the playwright can be a pain in the neck if they're around too much. So I've been conscious of that, but it's been an absolute privilege. It's been wonderful, wonderful. And also we're not going to do any more changes, but it has
until tomorrow.
It has given till tomorrow. It has given Sam and I the chance to keep kind of tweaking. But I see some of the actors going, "Oh, don't come near me, not another one." So no more changes.
But it's true though with the new work, isn't it, Tim? That when you've got a talented group of actors, they'll show you as a writer what you don't need.
Absolutely. And that's been the beauty of being here for this entire time, because, and we always knew as we were working on the piece, the words would get less and less and less. And as soon as the actors come on board and they start to inhabit the role, the words aren't needed, because just through their emotion and through their movement and through their very essence, less words is better, and it's better that they have the space to actually play the emotion rather than say the words. And it's been a gift watching them bring this script to life, an absolute gift. They are sensational. You are in for a treat.
Now, there's a question here from Jenny Saggers, who says, did the cast and team visit the Darra area and eat at the Kim Khan restaurant? Yes?
We so did. Oh, mate. The first week I booked that restaurant out. I was like, let's go, we're all going. And we all ate together. We had, not just the cast, but the creatives as well. And we smashed all the food in our faces, and it was sensational.
So one of the beautiful things about making an Australian work, Sam, which you've done a lot of, is that the research is in the living of the play. Everybody's lived the Australianness. It's not like making a play from another country where you do a lot of online research. What has it been like for you? The Brisbane time that you were here, and then the being away from Brisbane. What is that? I suppose. How has your understanding of the space and the place informed the making of the play? And do you think, as this play travels around the country and around the world in the years to come, as I'm sure it will, how will it lift off from Brisbane? Of course, we don't have to think about this for this production. We can just enjoy it here at home. But I'm interested in that question.
I mean, I think what's been fascinating for me about the story, and I think it will also be true of the production, is the way that it does what all great works of art do, which is kind of access the universal through the specific. And it is a very specific portrait of Brisbane at a particular time, but it also and the world's appetite for the novel speaks to the way that it transcends that specificity. But I think what's beautiful about and perfect, of course, about starting it here is that it speaks so directly to the audience here, and spoke to me very directly personally, in the sense that I'm literally a couple of years younger than Eli Bell, but this is essentially my kind of coming of age era too, as it is for a number of the cast as well. And I was kind of around Brisbane in that era. Went to Expo '88. I think. But particularly for Brisbane audiences too, who fundamentally understand the kind of coming of age of the city. I think it will be a particularly kind of special experience. But the sort of weird alchemy of it is that I think your kind of Danish audience will probably find it kind of equally accessible, even if they don't necessarily know where Darra is.
And of course, the poster of the play of Eli on his bike was shot in the streets of Darra, and there was a lot of local interest in what was going on that particular. And there were a couple of people that came out from houses and said, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, we're doing a poster for the play." And I was like, maybe you've read the book?" And they're like, "Oh yeah." Oh yeah. And I was like, well, and actually we got permission to be on a fair number of properties by saying essentially, well, if we're going to do the book and it was set here, we've got to do the photos here, right? And everybody's like, oh yeah, couldn't do it anywhere else. There's nowhere like here. And you go, and that's a really lovely thought. I'm interested, you know what, when it goes to Denmark, we should go and watch. We should definitely go and watch. And look, there have been a lot of questions about what is the future of this work. And to be really honest, in an ordinary time, that would all be locked in. But I think COVID has asked a lot of questions about all of the different commercial theatre producers around the country, around the world. What works can they pick up? London and New York are only just starting to get back up on their feet. So yes, be assured there's a lot of interest, and the only thing that's stopping everything solidify is COVID. In the same way that we're crossing all our fingers, producers around the world are crossing their fingers, but all the questions are being asked, and of course there's worldwide interest in this, which is a really lovely thought for Trent and for Sam and the team, that they're making something that will speak to the whole world soon. Now, there's a question here from Kathy Everton. Now, I wondered whether to read this one out. I'm going to fling this one to you, Sam. According to the review in The Australian, Dalton said a lot of the book is real and a lot of it's bullshit. I would love to know what is which or which is what. How do you, and I'd open this up to everyone, knowing that a story just has to ring true, it doesn't have to be true, how much have you asked Trent? And how much have you stepped away from doing that? Sam?
I'm happy. I think we throw that to some of the cast. Or another, and an alternative question that builds on that might be, if that's not necessarily one that you can answer, what's it like working on a play script that has a kind of novel underpinning it, and how can you use that in a way that you mightn't be able to if you were just working on a straight script?
Ready, set, go.
So I totally had a coffee with Trent the other day. But we had him for our table read, our first day of rehearsal. He was in the room with us, and he is one of the most genuinely delightful human beings you will ever meet in your life, and he is an open book, and he shared so much with us on that first day. Slim Halliday was his babysitter. The red telephone, the room, that was all there. Was there anyone on the other end? Maybe that's fantasy. All the stuff that happened, the violence that happened, the drugs, all of that is real. So there's a huge percentage of this story that is very, very real for Trent and his family and their extended family, therefore. But he's been even though he was only with us for that first day, he gave us so much love and energy and genuine openness that we've carried that with us throughout the rehearsal process, really. And we haven't had to ask him stuff because the book is our little Bible, and we've created, we're telling a story. This isn't the book. This is the play, and we have to know that they're two different things. And we want to honour the book and honour Trent and his story, but at some point we also have to go, we've got to tell it now. And so I don't think any of us, I don't want to speak for everybody, but we haven't really reached out to mine him for information because he's given us the gift of the book and he's given us the permission to do our best with it. So for me, that's such a beautiful thing and such an absolute privilege, especially given that I'm playing a fairly close representation of his actual mother, and some of us, and Joe is playing him, and Tom is playing an amalgamation of his brothers as children, so, and various other characters, obviously. But I hope I haven't waffled too much, but I feel like he gave us so much on that first day, and he's given us this book, and you guys as the audience are the other part of the story. And your energy and involvement within this space is going to determine what you take from it.
And everybody else is going, phew, now I don't have to answer that question.
Thank you, Michaela. Yeah, that's exactly what it was like. Trent's extraordinary. Just for my two characters, I asked about Alex, and he's not a real character, but he's based on an incident that he talked about. And Ivan is based on a real criminal who he met when he was younger. And kind of, once I discovered that and going into the research of it, it's genuinely terrifying, I think. So I have a kind of an obligation to bring that to the stage in some way. So I think, look, but the book itself, in reading the book, and I still reread bits of it, it just gives you, like, for a character or for an actor, it gives you these tiny little vignette moments where you can do that on stage, just a tiny little moment. It's partly for you, but if anyone watching the play has read the book, they'll see kind of that motion. If they're over it, it's just a tiny kind of recognition of the book. So that's what we're trying to do in some ways, is just bring these tiny little vignettes. And the way we're doing the play, I remember I had this moment, and I think it's true. For anyone who's ever read Mad Magazine, you've got the kind of the main stories, but in the sidelines of the Ergon does these little drawings that are kind of funny and wacky. And I think that's kind of what the play's like. Every now and then there'll be something just in the background I hope anyway, that's what we're trying to do, is you just see a little moment that's got a whiff of the novel in it. So, yeah, but good, thank you.
So Trent has given Brisbane and Australia his life in the form of a book. Tim has given us a beautiful play. Sam and this extraordinary group of people are building for us a beautiful production. But what we're going to give you now is Lucky Door Prize, importantly, in that fine Queensland theatre tradition. And tonight, there is a $200 voucher to Epic Hair, plus a hair home care package valued at $50. There we go. So thanks to Queensland Theatre's season partner, Epic Hair. for donating our Lucky Door prize. And Bailey's going to come up on stage, and Joe is going to take it out. Now, you haven't been given the little...
Come on, Mum and Dad.
You haven't been given your usual raffle tickets, but we have actually got all of your seat numbers. So, Bailey, come on. Joe, there we go.
Stalls L13. L13.
Oh, there we go. Now,
congratulations.
Congratulations, L13. And if at the end of all of this you would make your way to the box office, they will have your voucher for you. Thank you to everybody for being here tonight with us. What was that? Oh, favourite lines. Okay, right. Thank you. I had forgotten. Off you go, Matt Cooper.
What?
Your favourite line. Come on.
Oh, no. Mine's all swearing, so...
We're all grown-ups here. You can actually say it. Excellent. Okay, Joe, favourite line?
That one. No, my favourite line is a line from August. Now I'm not even going to say it right. I don't say the line, I just listen to it. So it's most things people say aren't worth saying. It's in the book as well, and I'm so grateful Tim put it in the play.
I don't think we've got time for everybody to say their favourite lines. I am sorry, I should have incorporated that better. But maybe we can feed that into our social media posts over the next few weeks. Look, we hope that we get to be on stage for the next few weeks, but I want to thank you not only for joining us tonight. Please cross all your fingers. Please keep washing your hands. Thank you so much for continuing to wear masks. You know, I know it's uncomfortable, but if that's what we've got to do to keep our theatres open, that's what we'll all do. Thank you for getting vaccinated. Thank you for being with us on this extraordinary journey that is Boy Swallows Universe. See you in the theatre.